So welcome to the meeting. Hi, Eric Gilman. Nice to see your face. Nice to see so many of you on here today. I'm also freezing, even though I'm in sunny San Diego. My hands are freezing today. I will follow the agenda, which is super challenging for me, but since it's market stats, I will zip it, lock it, put it in my pocket, and just welcome you guys with a few reminders. Property pitches and buyer needs are on the Facebook page today, as far as anything else with escrow and mortgage too. Don't mind me looking at my notes Evie just sent me. And don't forget today, we're going to stick around for our first cultural event of 2021. How well do you know San Diego real estate coming up right after? And if I missed anything else, I will get you after Ashley's done. But for now, let's pass it off to our fabulous, fearless leader for the update on what is going on out there.
Well, I just asked Evie to make me a host so I can share the PowerPoint.
All set, Ashley.
I'm good?
Yep.
All right. So just before I logged on, I got into SDAR's MLS, and some of you may have noticed I posted this morning, we did go below 2,000 listings as of 5 a.m. Anybody want to guess what it is right now?
I saw 2,300 and something this morning.
I only do
Nice.
detached and attached. And if
Okay, I also do town and twin.
1,984.
Ah, God.
1,984. That's remarkable. All right, so here, let's just jump in. And I want to leave time for discussion because the last couple months we've done that. You guys have had some really good feedback. So let me adjust so I can see more of you.
Is Bob going to talk about that San Diego Real Estate Friends post today?
Which post was that?
The one with the screenshot of them demanding that they use the seller's preferred lender.
Oh, I did not see that.
Me and Clarissa were on it last night. It's pretty entertaining.
Just grab a bag of popcorn and look at just the comment sections. It's hilarious.
It's so good.
It got taken down already.
Oh,
They
Good stuff
deleted
gets
it.
banned. All right, so here we go. For most of the world, 2020 was an absolute dumpster fire. Yes. We were all looking forward to 2021 and starting fresh. And as far as COVID goes, we still have a few months of dumpster fire. The good news is on the real estate side of things, most major markets have actually had their best year ever in 2020. What we're experiencing in San Diego is not atypical. Again, in most of the major metropolitan areas, we're all facing very similar issues. I will say ours is probably a little more extreme than some, and yet we're profiting from it. We had a great year. Most of our agents had a great year, and if you didn't consider 2020 a great business year for you, I would start engaging more with the education and conversations we're having, because there's a tremendous amount of opportunity out there. And as I shared with a friend yesterday, the women and the girls are being separated right now. The boys and the men are being separated right now in this industry. And you want to be one of the adults left standing and succeeding at a high level. So the next slide, this is kind of funny. I always look up what's the holiday 3 months from now, 90 days from now, because what you are doing today will show up in results 90 days from now. This, I didn't put it on the slide, but my partner's birthday, Gail's birthday, is April 27th, which is 90 days from today. And her favorite food on the planet is prime rib. It happens to coincide with her birthday, prime rib day. Didn't know there was a prime rib day. Okay, so first let's take a little snapshot of the last 4 years. On the top are the properties that were listed in each of the price categories that I segment in 2016 through 2020, and then the solds are on the bottom. Overall, we listed fewer properties in 2020 than we did, really, you can look back any of the last 4 years. Year over year, so 2019 versus 2020, from a listing standpoint, we took 8.52% fewer listings. a total of 3,900 and change. Fewer properties came to market. On the sold side, we sold 4% more year over year. And if you look back at the 4-year trend, we actually were the third best year in terms of solds out of the last 4 years. And that's why our inventory is now at 1,984. This compaction, contraction of the inventory is only continuing. And Peggy, I'm going to give the takeaway right from the beginning right now. And on the slides today, I actually put just a few key notes. Traditionally, we have the largest buildup of inventory compared to our absorption. So we list more properties in January as a percentage than we sell in January. So typically January is the month where we have the most standing inventory. And then it gets less and less standing inventory as the year goes on. So the takeaway is if we're at 1,984 listings right now, we will probably see that number shrink all the way through the year. And I honestly have no clue how far it possibly can go down, because I never, ever would have thought we'd be under 2,000 listings as a county. So the takeaway is it's been tight. It's going to get tighter. We've got to get better at getting listings, because it's not going to ease up on the buy side. It's just going to get more uncomfortable. So these are this month's numbers compared to last month's numbers, just so you can see what happened. And so active detached units this morning at 5 a.m. under $1 million. Total for houses, we have 568 in the MLS. Last month we had 886, same time. What's a little more disturbing than that is how many pending we have under $1 million. So we have nearly 3 times the amount of pending houses under $1 million than we have active. So that says we would need 3 times the amount of inventory in the next 30 days than we have. We could at least sell that much more. And then sold in the last 30 days, and that is the last 30 days. So December 27th through January 27th, 1,148. So we sold twice as many houses under $1 million as we have available right now. So let me pause there. What are your thoughts? Hello?
They're all devoid of thought.
I'll chime in. I was just writing stuff down. My thought is that we just really need to get aggressive getting properties, getting listings, like really aggressive.
Yeah, I would go as far to say as you should really be doing nothing else. If you've got buying your current listing, awesome, continue to do that. And every extra free moment, we need to be searching, hunting for, and finding listings.
Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you, Ashley, there. One of the things I see in reviewing new contracts is more purchases out of area. Riverside County, Temecula, Menifee, places like that. So it might call for buyer's agents to look, for homes outside of the county.
I would 100% agree with you. And that's primarily dependent on price point. Because we really don't have much available under $1 million, and then condos under 500,000. So if you've got people who in normal markets would, afford a $300,000 home, they're not going to find it here. So we've got to go out geographically. I will also say though, all those surrounding areas are having similar inventory challenges. Now their price points are different, they're lower price points, but it's still incredibly competitive in all of Southern California. Now detached over $1 million, little bit different story. We at least have more available properties than we're selling, but still pretty darn close to 100% absorption. Okay. And again, if we look at what happened in January, typically January's numbers are higher than December's. They are significantly lower. Whoa. I just had somebody's, Robert, change your background. Thank you. All right, condos. So under $500,000, we have 305. I would guess if we put all the Keller Williams in San Diego together, there's probably 305 condo buyers for under $500,000. Pending 616. So again, twice as many in pending as we have available. If you're noticing the emotion on my face, it's because this is somewhat absurd, maybe even tragically humorous. And sold in the last 30 days, 382. So 100% absorption currently. And then over $500,000, still only 433, bordering on 90% absorption there. Okay, thoughts? And yes, Mindy said, sounds like we should make good referral connections. Absolutely. If you don't want to be traveling up to Menifee, Temecula, find some agents up there that you can work back and forth with. Incidentally, I've noticed since the beginning of the year, I've noticed we've had a lot of people who are moving to Texas and Arizona, right? Well, right now, I am also getting a lot of calls for inbound referrals from both of those states. So it's kind of like we're flip-flopping for some reason, populations. So those are two other places you may want to make some good connections with. All right. So this is just a reminder for all of us that even though inventory may be short, the competitive landscape is really not that aggressive. So with 28,000 realtors in San Diego County, you're only competing with 5,800 of them in the whole county because 23,000 didn't close anything. Okay. It'd be interesting to see how that plays out. My prediction for 2021 is that number will actually go down. Instead of 5,800 realtors who closed a deal, I would bet in 2021, you're going to see that closer to 5,400. And the reason for that is the 1 and 2 deals a year agents are not going to be able to compete because actually, let me ask this live question because I see the chat box going. How many of you are learning to be better in negotiating in this tight market the more deals you do? Right? So we're winning out a lot because we've, as a collective, been so active, we've refined those skills to get our offers accepted. Whereas somebody who hasn't sold something since last July has no clue what it's going to take. Okay. So I think Stephen had put a script in the chat box. This is one that's in the PowerPoint. Focus on the price points where we have the least amount of inventory and go find some listings. So I'm not going to go into detail on the price points because you can see it and you can go in depth on your own. But I did put a note in here that there's a historic differential between how many listings we brought to market and how many we sold. We had the fewest number of listings come, at least in the last 10 years in 2020. However, we sold as many, if not more units than most of that decade. That's why it's overall 78.33% absorption rate. That's insane. So if we're saying that, the numbers prove it out, why is that important? What impact does that have on real estate consumers, both sellers and buyers?
Lower inventory than we've ever had with higher absorption.
So what's the impact though? If I'm talking to a seller, why is that important for me to know?
Because you're going to have the most competition that you've had in this market, and therefore you're going to be driving up prices like never before.
100% accurate.
And new comps
Almost demand your price right now. Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I was going to say I've had obviously like appraisals have been a little bit of an issue right now, right? And so I've been telling my agents to pay attention to any pending sales that are like close to closing and trying to time it a little bit better, because I had 2 appraisals come in $30,000 to $60,000 low, and they would have had a comp that probably wouldn't have gotten them all of the value, but a lot better, a lot closer to that value if they had just waited one day to get the appraisal done, because it's not a comp until it's closed, and it has to close before the appraiser goes out to the property.
It's a really good point. It's a really good point. And I've had a couple questions in the last couple weeks. Robert, close your ears. There are really wonky things happening, like somebody who's getting a loan on a property waiving their loan contingency, which just means whatever deposit they've put up is hard, essentially. They're putting in a deposit that the seller gets to keep if they can't get the loan for whatever reason. I would not advise that. And yet, if that becomes norm in the market, what are you going to do if you have to be competitive as a buyer?
Yeah, to go off of what Amanda said also, if you're a listing agent and you're waiting and you see that there's a few pendings that may help your cause, call those listing agents. If their contingencies are removed, they're going to give you that close price realistically. And then I handed all of that to my appraiser, and we got appraised for way more than we thought we would. So just, when you're the listing agent in this market, you don't have a ton to do right now. So do your one job.
And show up
That's
to
it.
your appraisal.
Please show up to your appraisal.
Also,
That's what I did too. Emily, thank you for saying that. That's where we're getting hurt a little bit, and we are getting frustrated, because when you've got really weak or inexperienced agents on the list side in this market, it makes it even that much more difficult. So yes, I don't always suggest this, but I would look up the agent on the other side to see how much production they've done, because that will help you gauge whether or not you've got a partner to close this, or you're going to have to do all the work.
Also, Ashley, can I say something?
Yes, Maddie.
It's also, I think, really important to know that a lot of people know this is going on in listing agents. So like, I just took my buyer to look at a property, a house that had been on the market for like 3 days. So it was listed at like 1.2. The listing agent was like, my buyer's pre-approved and everything. They love the house. And then I was like, what price do you think she's like, we have multiple offers. We have offers already. She's like, you should send me an offer for 1.3 if you want this house. So I thought about it. I talked to my buyers. We sent an offer for 1.225, and our offer got fully accepted. So listing agents are also trying to get as much money as possible. Obviously, they're using this whole scare tactic. I mean, we still offer $25,000 more than it was listed for. But she said we should offer 1.3.
Yeah.
And so now we're in escrow. So.
Well, congratulations on that.
Okay.
And certainly, again, people are going to get squirrely in a market like this. What I'd like to also emphasize is build the relationship with the other agent if they're worth it. So important. All right, so same numbers, different graphical format. And this one, for me this month, I literally could see the difference. The blue line is 2018, the number of listings taken. And when you compare that to the orange line that is 2020, look, this is why, Mark Miller, people are moving out into the far areas, because under 500,000, it's incredibly slim pickings. And in most areas of the country, 500,000 is, decent amount of money to spend on a home. All right, so listed 2019 versus 2020. Again, we took 3,903 fewer listings in 2020 than we did in 2019. And you can see where that impact was felt the most, under 600,000. And then we sold 1,267 more properties than in 2019. So that almost 4,800 property difference, that's significant. And I don't know how we recapture that kind of standing inventory. It's why I believe it's going to just trickle down, and we could see 1,500 available homes.
Put in for.
All right, and same thing. You can see where the impact was as far as the properties we didn't sell. They were under 600,000. If we had more inventory there, we'd sell more. Okay, 3-year trends by sold. That was listing and sold data. This is now just sold. All right. See the movement, the heavy movement in the 800 plus. Look how many more properties we're selling. And incidentally, we redefined as a county, Keller Williams did for San Diego County, that our luxury price point now is 1.3 million. Up until this year, it's been set at 900,000. Well, if you guys are out looking at properties at 900,000, you know in San Diego that that's not a whole lot of property. So we had to redefine the luxury price point to 1.3 million. Okay. So this slide, the important takeaway is always the absorption rates. And what I do there is I take the number of sold properties and divide it by what was listed. And for the first time ever that even I've seen one price point go above 80%, we've got 2. So in the calendar year, we absorbed 81% of properties between $500,000 and $700,000. That's crazy. To see anything above 75% is really, really, really rare. Pretty much across all the price points to see it is I haven't seen. Now, let's critically think about this for a minute. If we have the number of standing inventory that we have in January, right? So 1,984 current properties available. And we know we have over 2,800, actually 3,800 in escrow. What do you think our absorption rate for January is going to look like? Will it be above or below 75%?
I'm going to guess it'll be above.
It'll definitely be above. And it may be across price points above 80%, which again, it's just hysterical and historic. And for those of you who don't know what absorption rate is, I left this slide in here this month so you can come back to it for reference. Because again, it's going to allow you to talk to your sellers and get them motivated. If they know, hey, everything's absorbing, you're going to have multiple offers. We can go on and on the market and off the market in probably 4 days. And with the buyers, you've got to give them evidence that says you have to be willing to operate outside of your comfort zone. Because if you can't compete as a buyer, if you have buyers that can't actively compete, then you should not be wasting your time with them, unfortunately. Okay. New listings. So this is not necessarily easy to visually identify, so I plug the numbers in. But we had the best December for new listings since 2010. And a lot of the stuff that was coming to market 2008, 9, and 10 was still REO properties and short sales. So those listing numbers were increased. But to see that we had the best December for new listings is awesome. The challenge is we're absorbing them even faster than they're coming to market. Active listings. So if we had the best listing December we've had in 10 years, and yet look where our available inventory is. And this was, again, I pulled numbers active this morning, so there's a little bit of discrepancy with this one, but still not much. It's the lowest number of houses that we've had at the end of a month ever, and the lowest number of condos we've had at the end of a month ever. And then for just some historical perspective, I wanted to go all the way back to 2008. So January 2008, and this is just the January number all the way through the next 12 years. So January 2008 through January 2020, where our existing inventory is.
So Ashley, a good perspective on that is during that period, we couldn't get buyers to buy. So it's just the complete opposite. So for people, if you're newer to this, don't be freaking out like, oh, the sky's falling. It's not really falling. It's just a polarity of markets.
Well, and we can tell the sky's not falling because it's not that we're listing too few properties. We're just moving them quickly. The demand is still outstripping the supply. It's, again, we didn't list that many fewer properties. We did a few, 3,800. But everything that came on went off. That's the challenge. So that's why there's not a whole lot of choice, which is a good thing as far as we go, because our income obviously is dependent on what we sell. It's not a great thing for obviously the buyers out there who want some choice. How many of you have had a buyer who bought something in the last year that they weren't real thrilled with? They were just happy to get in the market. Yeah. Good news is they'll make money. They will make money. All right, so here's pendings. So things that were put into pending status in December. For December, the highest pendings ever. I don't know what is contributing to the frenzy, the buying frenzy. I am glad it's there, but the numbers prove it out. Even year over year, we went from 1,200 to 1,500 houses put into pending status in December, and 683 to 945. That's a significant percentage year over year. And then, of course, we saw that peak back in September. Once things started to relax a little bit, had the highest September we've ever had in terms of pendings. And sold, highest December ever, 30% year over year increase. Likely January will follow that same trend. And I truly don't see anything that's going to change that in 2021. So we'll, as long as the new listings keep coming on, which they are, and they go off quickly, we're just going to see that inch up. And the existing inventory inch down. There's an inverse relationship between those two numbers. Should be no surprise, but the median over the last year really went up. Okay, so back from December 2016 through December 2020, on houses, we saw a 32% increase in value for the median. And for condos, it's a 34% increase. So if you divide that by 4, it's roughly 8.5% a year of equity gain. Average sales price, very similar. In 2021, the gains will likely be even bigger than that. Somebody said that right at the beginning. I would not be surprised to see 13 or 14% increases in value in 2021. Which will mean, as Amanda alluded to, we're going to have to get really good with providing our data to the appraisers and just factoring it in that we may have to challenge the appraisals. So in December, this is not that unusual, but our market time ticked up. It's still ridiculously low. So if you have an existing listing that is a condo and it's over 16 days on the market, it's overpriced. If it's a house and it's over 12 days on the market, it's likely overpriced. I see again the chat box going crazy. If there's something that you want to chime in on, please do, because I can't have that up as well. So the existing months of inventory, having looked at all the numbers, this should not be surprising. For condos, we're at 1.1 months of inventory. And for houses, we're at 0.8 months of inventory. I did the math on that. That means we have 24 days of inventory for houses. So we're now in a time where we're not talking about months of inventory, we're talking about days of inventory. And again, to put a finer point on it, that's only going to contract more. Typically in January, especially the first half of January, we'll see an influx of listings where people were just waiting till the beginning of the year. Obviously, we had some of this political stuff going on. So I was thinking, well, maybe that just held people back for a little while. We still have not seen that January pop. Still hasn't shown up. So it may not. Average list price compared to sales price. This should not be surprising either. So for houses, we're over, and this is the average, we're over 100%. So the vast majority of properties are going over their original list price. For condos, it's just under 100%. So if that's average, that means there are some that are really going a lot over, right? And I would love to hear some feedback. Oh, it's 2:00. I'd love to hear feedback maybe on the Facebook page and just see how far over properties are going. I have a coaching client in Kansas City. Over the weekend, she had a $255,000 house listed, and they went into escrow today for $365,000. That's a massive difference, obviously. And she did not intentionally underprice that. It's just where it got bid up to. Would love to get some of our own data for that in our office. Okay, I'm not going to spend any time on these two next slides. SDAR's data center. You've got better data than they do, so you can just look at them. Look at them later. All right, questions. Like, give me one more minute, Robert. A couple questions or comments.
Everybody has to go to appraisals. Have to go to appraisals. You have to meet the appraiser there. I met them there with every offer I received. I had like 20 or something. I gave them all the data. They couldn't believe I had gone up that high, 60,000 over the list. He was like, what? And I brought him all the data and he gave us list price. He gave us the price.
Awesome.
I have a question.
Yes.
So somebody put in the chat, like, why are people not selling? And from calling around, at least to the areas I've been recently, it's just a lot of people who are older and have been in their homes for 30 plus years. So they're paid off. They have no desire to go anywhere else. San Diego's a destination living area, but I
lost your audio.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to ask you, because of that population of people who are older, never wanting to leave their houses, or I get a lot of, oh, we're not going to sell it, we're going to hand it down to our children. What are your speculations about when Prop 19 hits in April? Do you think that's going to help us with this inventory problem? Because older people that have been in their homes are going to be more willing to sell and transfer their tax basis. What do you think will happen with that?
Oh man, I wish I had a crystal ball. I honestly don't know, because I think the bigger motivation is what you just said. If I'm living here cheap, because either I have no mortgage payment or it's really low, where am I going to go? Even if I cash out, where am I going to go that has this kind of quality of life?
Right.
So I think the intention of Prop 19 was to free up some of that inventory. And yet we don't have a whole lot of options for people. And even in the aging community, I think another challenge, and this is a longer conversation, maybe we could do a mastermind on, is they've seen with COVID what living in a retirement community is like, and they don't want that anymore. Right? Because I mean, you talk about people who've lost their freedom. It's those 60, 70, 80-year-olds who can't even leave the facility because they're not allowed to. So that's hurt us as well.
Leadership.
I think, Ashley.
Go ahead, Mike.
Ashley, I think.
Go ahead, Mike.
Good. All right. I was going to touch on that. I think more than anything, that's the real issue, is with the coronavirus, and you get the elderly, they're already like not getting the shots and not being able to get the stuff that they need. Why would they leave their safe haven? So that's the real issue, Sarah, that all of us are facing right now, because there's a ton of people I know that have equity out the rear end, and they just don't want to go anywhere because there's not enough houses in inventory, and it's just the safety, the health side of it. So we're getting a double whammy with that. The biggest thing right now, I think, we can do is just focus on those people that are leaving California. If you can get people that are leaving, or those people that are out of state, out of area, absentee owners. That's where it is right now.
Agreed. Okay, Mark, final comment.
I was just going to say that CAR leadership is telling us that they're preparing, public facing information campaign for Prop 19. which, may answer some of these questions, and it can be used as sales tools as that stuff starts to get released. So that's forthcoming, and it may provide some answers for this. And as Mike pointed out, if vaccination rollout continues, some of these issues may lessen, but
To be seen. Just strap in for the ride and prospect. All right, Robert.
All right, we're gonna get going. Can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, I was going to say, luckily we can't see you, but now we can see you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Because I'm having an unstable internet. If you hear me fading in and out, let me know, and I'm going to have to pass it back to you, Ashley, at any one time.
Okay.
Amanda put on this, talked earlier about what she saw on Facebook, and with this market, usually annually, I like to talk about ethics. And here's what happens in a market like this. We see ethics be challenged within this industry. So I'm hoping that everybody remains on this call, including leadership, because it's important that leadership knows exactly how to coach agents to make sure they don't get in trouble in this market. And we're seeing it a lot. So I have the pleasure of also not sitting on the risk management board at SDAR, but I also took on the grievance committee this year, and I sit on there with Chris Spade as well. And we'll have another new member from our office this next year as well. And grievance is where agents go file a grievance against another real estate agent within the community for a violation of what we call the Code of Ethics. Now, the Code of Ethics is this very long document, and since who knows what RDR means?
Realtors don't read.
Yeah, realtors don't read, so it's a long document. So I've put in the chat box the 2021 Code of Ethics demystified. I've kind of made it simple for you. However, let me address this one thing that Amanda's talking about so that you guys are all aware if this ever happens at our office. There was a post that someone put on Facebook in a group, and they posted a counteroffer back to a buyer, and the buyer in the counteroffer stated that the buyer had to use a certain lender. And the post has now been taken down. So this creates two issues. The first issue is called a hyper RESPA enforcement, which is the Real Estate Settlements Procedure Act. And this is where the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau will get in place. It's an arrangement by a referring party, like a real estate professional, engaging in a practice of requiring buyers to submit a written application to a particular mortgage lender before considering their offer to purchase a property is unlawful in the CFPB's view, even if the referral activity is not specifically tied to compensation from the lender. And then the double whammy, it could hit the broker as well as the lender if they're associated with our office, like Movement Mortgage is. The CFPB will look at that as a forced creation of a business or relationship as a thing of value, and hence is a violation of RESPA Section H, which is steering. So here's what happened. Some listing agent put in the counteroffer back to the buyer that they had to use this particular lender. That's a no-no. So listing agents, take heed of this. If this is ever a practice that you have used in the past, eliminate it. Mark does review all the files that come through. And if we ever see it, we will gladly have a conversation with you. And if it's a practice that continues, we will gladly entertain another office for you to go to. Because I don't want to have an ethics violation for you. I don't want to have an ethics violation for me as the broker, or spend any time on stuff like that. So it's important to understand what the ethics are in regards to this. And that's kind of that in the nutshell. Several things came out, what Ashley was talking about with where our inventory is in today's market. And here's what we deal with a lot is appraisals. Obviously, if you're going to have a buyer make an offer on a property and it's going way over asking price, you will have an appraisal issue. And a lot of people in their offers are addressing that in what we call the escalation clauses, or they're completely removing the appraisal contingency in your offers. You're putting your buyers really, really at risk if you don't know how to craft the offer to protect them. So Mark and I make ourselves very much available nights and weekends now because of this, and we're getting a lot more with this. So I want you to feel free to reach out to us if you need to craft an offer that has either an escalation clause or an appraisal removal, no contingency for the appraisal up front. Please reach out to us so that we make sure we guide you properly in order to do that. The other thing we're seeing is in your residential listing agreements, we are seeing you guys add clauses in that listing agreement. If agent brings buyer, commission to be 4%. Okay, that is language that's added that doesn't, one, make any sense, because what do you mean brings buyer? Brings them to the house, or do they close on the escrow? And it would not be enforceable if the seller says, I'm not paying you that. You said I only needed to pay you this. If you brought a co-op agent and you didn't do it, you brought the buyer, but you didn't, this language sucks. So if you have a listing agreement where you're working on getting the listing, great. And the seller says, well, if you bring a buyer, will you do it for less? Great. We have approved language that we can add to the residential listing agreement that will allow you to make sure, one, it guarantees you get paid, and that it's written in such a format that it's more clear in the residential listing agreement. So shout out to, who was it? Surreal Sparks reached out to me, and he asked me to look at his listing agreement that he's getting signed on Friday, and he had language in the listing agreement that didn't make any sense, and we got the right stuff, and now he's good to go. So any questions on that? Okay, so now I'm going to share my screen. And let's talk about how some agents can get in trouble by not following good practices. Now, this is on the CAR website. So if someone was to violate the code of ethics, what happens is there's proceedings, and another agent will file something against you. And you're welcome to view this. It is on the CAR website. That's the link. And I went through some of the violators that I saw on there that were something that, wow, I didn't know that I would get in trouble doing that. And since Chris Spade, you're on the line with us today, right?
Yep.
What is the one thing you said when you said on grievance, we were talking a few weeks ago, when you're seeing some of the complaints that come across? You said something about,
Well, I don't know if I can use my exact language, but I said I've learned a lot. Basically, I've learned what I've done wrong that I didn't know I did wrong, and I'm learning how not to F up now.
Yeah, and you guys probably will F up. It's okay. And that's why we're here to protect you. Thank you, Chris, for that. So I have cut and pasted some of these violations, and I've redacted, like the Mueller report, individual one. I don't want to, because we are on YouTube, I don't want to have the agent's name on there, even though this is public record. You can actually go see this on the CAR website, and you can see their pretty little picture. Some of them have some really scary pictures on there that they have there. But some of these code violations are pretty scary. 3 years placed on a file with a fine of $7,500. So here's what this one agent did. This agent was found in violation of Article 15 because he made misleading statements regarding a listing agent and their handling of the real estate transaction process. And individual one provided incorrect information to a seller regarding the proper method of handling a title report and gave incorrect information about the legal length of a listing agreement with the seller. Seems like a pretty easy thing. You're like, and this is where a lot of agents can get in trouble, is because they think they're being helpful, but one of the things you have to realize, remember when you sit in our contract training, you're not a lawyer, you're not a title person, you're not a foundation person, you're not an escrow officer, you're not an accountant. You've got to be really careful about the language you use when someone asks you a question, especially about something on a title report, and you don't really know the answer, but your response should be, it's a great question. Let me find the right person to put you in contact with. Well, that one particular person violated Article 15, which is the duty not to make false or misleading statements about other real estate professionals and or their business practices. Now, where are some of those, where can an example of someone making a false or misleading statements about other real estate professionals, where's that happening right now?
Facebook.
What medium?
All social media?
Facebook.
Yeah. You guys have no idea. And I remember what Oprah said years ago about her talk show. People just want to be heard. That's why talk shows were a great format for people to come share their story. But people, come on, think about what you're writing on social media to go out to the world. Not everything needs to be on social media for the world to see. And not everybody needs to know your thoughts about another agent. And disparaging agents especially with another company, that is a no-no. If that agent decides to file a code of ethics violation against you, and look what this person was charged, $7,500. It must have been a pretty egregious violation. Now, I don't know the entire particulars. I'm sure it went through multiple hearings. Okay, let's talk about what the next individual one did. Wanted to represent husband and wife sellers of a property. He prepared the listing agreement, and the husband provided both the husband's and wife's signatures. Now remember, if a husband and wife is on title, or everybody that's on title has to sign the listing agreement. Not just one person can. They changed that a few years ago. The wife later called the agent and advised him that the couple already had a real estate agent who would handle the sale of the property once they were ready to put it on the market. The wife said she would not sign that listing agreement and requested the agreement her sign be canceled. Additionally, the husband testified that very soon after he signed it from the agent, the other agent provided the outstanding encumbrance information on the property, which reflected that the sale of the property would ultimately be a short sale. The husband testified that the agent did not explain the ramifications of a short sale or the terms of the listing agreement that was signed. So I bring this one up right now too. A lot of you agents are not familiar with what short sales are, because if you weren't in that market, but we are seeing a few of them pop up every now and then. Strange, but they do. If you do have a property in a listing with a short sale, you have to understand how to navigate through that legal maneuvering to get that short sale through and explain to the sellers exactly what that means. Again, there's disclosures they'll need to sign. There's addendums that go with the listing agreement that explains it. But this agent, these owners felt like this agent concealed information. They filed a claim, 3 years on the record, and a fine of $500. Here's one, 3 years, $7,000 fine. The agent represented the seller of a property as the listing agent, communicated with the seller or the buyer's agent concerning timeframes the agreement upon in the residential purchase agreement, that the agent conveyed assurances to the seller and the buyer's agent on multiple occasions that were not met. He also recommended a contractor who was unlicensed and did not complete the agreed upon pest work in a workmanlike or timely manner. The agent failed to communicate to the buyer's agent the status of repairs that were in progress over a period of several weeks extending beyond close of escrow. The pest repair items that were clearly stated in the purchase agreement and agreed to by all parties were not completed by the contractor. The result of the contractor's incompetence was that the buyers had to pay more money after closing to obtain a pest clearance and roof certification. The panel found the agent violated Article 1 for failing to protect and promote his client's interests. So this goes along the lines of service providers, recommending service providers within a transaction. It sounds like this agent was saying you should use these people because they'll get everything done, without letting them know that when you recommend a service provider, the recommended language is, in the past, we've used this individual, and we also highly recommend that you look for other people that might be able to provide the same service. And you always memorialize that in an email, correct, Chris? Because you've learned document everything.
Yeah, and there was when you're done, there's a few things I just wanted to add.
You can add them now.
Well, along that line, a few of the things that I've definitely learned throughout this process. One is to make sure after every conversation you have with your client that you send an email memorializing everything. Not only has Robert told me that 100 times, but I know for a fact if we see cases and we had certain emails and knew certain things, then a lot of these ethics violations would probably go by the wayside. The second thing, so save all your emails. The second thing is, once a grievance is filed against you, you're not actually going to know about it until it goes to professional standards. So when we're talking about it, you don't know about it until we move it forward, and then you find out about it. And that's where you get to plead your case. So we're seeing stuff that people don't even know we're talking about. So FYI.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, and I need to clarify this too. The people that I'm highlighting on this were not highlighted for any particular reason other than that they were most common things that I see happening. And one of them may be in San Diego, and this has nothing to do with this agent. Agent learned and are making up. But here's what happens a lot, and I see this a lot in San Diego. This was a $2,000 fine, and they had to intend to complete a class on ethics and a class on advertising. So the complainants in this case were a listing agent, a broker for a property owned by a seller who had been ordered. The complainant means the people that brings the complaint, okay? Had been ordered by the court to get the property on the market by a deadline. The seller met with the listing agent before the mandated marketing date, but refused to let the agent take pictures of the property to put in the MLS. The listing agent uploaded the listing in the MLS in order to meet the marketing deadline and utilize a picture from Google Earth. Remember, every listing has to have at least one picture. Within a day of the listing appearing in the MLS, this agent posted on their Facebook page a copy of the Google Earth photo along with the following commentary. Things that make me laugh. The photo this agent chose to represent her listing. In my office, we have a saying, who represents you matters. The agent received over 125 responses and many likes also from that. also were insulting the complainants for using Google Earth photo in the MLS. The complainants alleged that Facebook recklessly encouraged the public at large to misconstrue their professionalism and business practice. The hearing panel agreed and found the agent in violation of Article 15 for recklessly making a misleading statement about other real estate professionals in their business practices. In Article 15, duty to not knowingly or recklessly make false or misleading statements about other real estate professionals, their businesses, or business practices. I had a few more, but in interest of time, we're not going to be able to cover all of them. My point about bringing all this out is we're in a different world right now. We're in a world where it's really competitive. We're in a world where I've never seen some of the agents outside of KW do what they did in the last year. And we're seeing a lot more of it happen. And as an office, we're pretty damn good. You guys are great. I just and I'm not blaming anybody in this office. I'm just making light. I want you guys to be really careful and thoughtful, mindful about your posts you do on Facebook. You never diminish the competition. You never talk bad about another real estate agent or another office or the office you came from in print. Now, in silent or behind closed doors, you can probably say whatever you want. But we do. Basically, what the NAR Code of Ethics means is our duties to clients and the real estate community as whole. You know, how we are as professional. And NARS goes to great lengths to make sure that we as an industry operate within good practices, good ethics, and we all treat each other well. And I always say, if you're having a challenge with an agent on the other side, it's a small real estate community. And you don't know how many times that if you have a really bad escrow or bad relationship with that agent, when that agent's going to come around either on the buy side or the list side of another transaction on a principal you're going to represent. And I'm sure there might be some people with historical significance on this call will be able to validate that they maybe have had a rocky relationship with agents in the past, and then all of a sudden they find that their buyer wants to go look at that property, and you're like, oh God.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's a small community. So please download and look at the code, the NAR Code of Ethics Demystified. I kind of made it as simple as I possibly could, so you can look at that, but that kind of helps bring it down, what each code of ethics stands for.
Robert, also, I think it's also important to say that if somebody on the grievance or pro standards committee personally knows you or has any sort of relationship with you whatsoever, we're required to excuse ourselves. So there's lots of people that come across, and if we just see their name, we're not supposed to read the complaint. So we're not supposed to know about it. So just know that if there is anything that comes across our laptops, then we recuse ourselves from the case altogether.
And we're fortunate enough, we had 2 cases from our office that were complainants that filed against other agents, and both cases will go towards pro standards because the whole idea behind the grievance committee is to make the industry better, make other agents treat other agents the way you all wanted to be treated. And I'm proud of our agents for doing it. I didn't get to see the case. I didn't sit in the committee because I had to recuse myself as well. But they will be going to pro standards and working out their differences there. So
Maybe we should install a help desk where we can expedite these claims.
yeah,
There's plenty of them going on.
Yeah. So any questions on that? And I know you guys got a double whammy today: risk management and lousy inventory.
Hey, Broker Bob, I saw one in the chat box that does include texting.
Anything that's printed.
Anything that's printed, because that can. I'm just answering that because I know Madi, he had asked in there texting. even recordings. I mean, you never know. So it's just best to follow what the elders used to always say. If you don't have anything good to say, don't say anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Robert, just if I can chime in real quick, you know, even though you delete it from social media, you know, it's still there. So just think about before you put anything on social media.
And somebody has a picture of it somewhere. So yeah, Claudine's right. Don't risk it, because honestly, guys, some of these cases that come across, I just look at them and I'm like, really? Like we're having to discuss this, but it was serious enough to somebody that we have to take the time to go over it. So yeah.
There's two things you don't want to have is an ethics violation filed against you and have it actually end up with a fine and to have your pretty face on the car website. But the other thing is you never, ever, ever want to end up in Twitter jail, because that's a very criminal laden place. Like Chris Spade ended up in Twitter jail for 12 hours yesterday.
It was excruciating.
All right, I think we're done now with risk management for the month. I hope that wasn't too bad. So
it was riveting, both of you guys, right? Robert, Ashley, thank you all so much, seriously. And as we were talking about, I'm looking at the chat box just blowing up here. Take some of this information, namely not necessarily the risk management part, but the marketing stats, right? To post in your videos, right? Post and get people aware of what's actually going on. And this is actually a perfect setup. Right after this is our culture committee being kicked off with Bridget. How well do you know San Diego? Take away some nuggets from that as well, because when you're promoting different neighborhoods, there's some little nuggets that you're going to take away from this fun little game to engage. So if you feel like drowning your sorrows in a glass of your favorite alcoholic beverage after this, you know what? Grab it and then join us for the culture committee here. Take it away, Bridget.
Thank you, Coach Stephen and Broker Bob and Ashley, for that.